Disaster management and its importance. When a disaster strikes, the normal reaction is that people of the affected area try to help each other in whatever way they think best. They generally use methods known to them. They then wait for the government to provide professional aid and assistance and save their lives and property. In fact, recently the government also felt that it can be better if people are aware and trained to face the disaster in advance rather than helping them after they are struck by a disaster. With this target in mind, the government's focus has shifted from relief and rehabilitation work to preparedness and planning. Advance awareness, preparedness, and planning to face any kind of disaster is what disaster management is all about. Thus, disaster management involves several necessary steps. These are identifying the possible disaster in an area, identifying the resources available which will help fight the disaster, prevention measures on a long-term basis or migration, spreading awareness and education, identifying the weak or vulnerable sites and groups of people, planning the course of action in time of a crisis, planning rescue and rehabilitation, understanding mock drills to ensure smooth working of plans. The advantages of disaster management are very obvious. Let us imagine that an area is prone to floods and the people are aware and educated on what steps they should take in event of a flood. They can then save their lives and belongings. Conversely, if people are not prepared and don't know what to do and how to respond, more damage will be caused. People living in an area under similar economic, geographical, and social conditions make up a community. In event of a disaster, the community is the first to respond or take action because aid from outside may take long to arrive. Therefore, being the first to face the situation, the community is called the first responder. If the community is aware, trained, and prepared, the chances of damage are reduced because people know how to respond, and this puts them at an advantage. In this way, they make themselves less prone to damage, and this is called decreasing the vulnerability. If people know how to handle resources to their advantage and take some long-term measures to prevent a hazard, it is called mitigation. If a community has taken mitigation steps, spread awareness, and has trained manpower, it has made itself more competent to handle disasters, and this is called capacity building. If a community has built its capacity, then it has reduced the risk of a disaster. Finally, such a community is said to have undertaken disaster preparedness and has adopted disaster management. A prepared and aware community can prevent a hazard from becoming a disaster. Flood in India. Floods are an annual feature in India. The northern and northeastern states are most prone to floods. The Ganga-Brahmaputra plains, drained by 60% of the total river flow and spread over 15 states, are most flood-prone. Flood become a disaster in this region because almost half of the country's population lives in these plains. Other flood-prone areas include the river basins of the Narmada and Tapti rivers in the central India and basins of the east flowing rivers like the Damodar, Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri. Preparedness for floods. Preparedness and mitigation are necessary for averting floods. Some mitigation steps may include building of brick concrete embankments on the banks of the rivers near settlements or flood-prone areas, creation of flood diversion canals and dams on rivers which flood regularly. Before flooding, you must have your emergency kit to carry to the safe shelter. The kit should have first aid kit with extra medication for snake bite and diarrhea, strong ropes for tying things, a radio, torch and spare batteries, stocks of fresh water, dry food, chana, muri, gur, biscuits, etc., salt and sugar, kerosene, candles and matchboxes, waterproof bags to store clothing and valuables, umbrellas and bamboo sticks to protect you from snakes. Know the route to nearest safe shelters that you have learned about earlier. If in rural areas, identify areas that are higher than the surroundings, or get your community to build an earthen mold to locate cattle, etc. in the event of a flood. On hearing a flood warning, tune into your radio or watch TV for warnings and advice. Keep vigil or flood warning given by local authorities. In rural areas, prepare to take bullock carts, other agricultural equipment, and domestic animals to safer places or to pre-identified areas such as mounds. Check your emergency kit. If you have to evacuate, pack clothing, essential medication, valuables, personal papers, etc. in waterproof bags to be taken to the safe shelter. Inform the local volunteers of disaster management team, if available, the location of the place you are evacuating to. Raise furniture, clothing, appliances to beds or tables. Turn off power. Whether you leave or stay, put sandbags in the toilet bowl and cover all drain holes to prevent sewage backflow. Lock your house and take the recommended or known evacuation routes for your area to the safe shelter. Don't get into water of unknown depth and current. During floods, drink boiled water. Keep your food covered. Don't eat heavy meals. Use raw tea, rice water, tender coconut water, etc. during diarrhea. Don't let children remain on empty stomach. Use bleaching powder and lime to disinfect the surroundings. Avoid entering flood waters. If you must, wear proper protection for your feet and check depth and current with a stick. Stay away from water over knee-deep depth. Don't eat food that has got wet in the flood waters. Boil tap water before drinking in rural areas. Be careful of snakes. Snake bites are common during floods.